are again at the BAM Biz Talk podcast. And I am Angel Garcia here with Michael Crane. We are BAM, and our guest today is Miss Kat Shelby with Shelby Technology Solutions. How are you doing today, Miss Kat?
I'm doing great.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So you have a knowledge set that is very important in today's world. And, you know, we feel as entrepreneurs and, you know, our business evolves around entrepreneurs that it's one of the most important things when you have lots of data, everything's digital, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about yourself and, you know, how you came to be where you're at right now.
Okay. So I actually have been around in, I would say, the technology space for about, let's say, 20, 22 years. So for a while. And I always feel like I went the traditional route. You know, I worked for a very large LEC for a long time and then worked for an on-prem phone system dealer for a couple years and then came into the space that I'm at right now, which is more technology consulting. And I had worked for 2 different companies on a contract basis, consulting with their clients. And I decided, you know what, I might as well just go out on my own and start my own company. And I've loved it. I mean, I love working with my clients. Obviously in the technology set, we're always learning new things. And I absolutely love to, you know, continue my knowledge and learn and be able to help my clients.
Yeah.
So
that's what it's about, right?
Yeah, that's
right.
what the entrepreneurial does, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, all from the client to customer perspective.
Exactly.
That's how you serve them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So awesome. So, what is there? What's going on in the cyber world right now?
Well, I mean, I feel with technology, you know, every day we're looking at more ways that clients can interact with their customers, how the customers want to interact with them. And I think that's a huge thing right now because, you know, it's not back in the day where you pull out the yellow pages and you look for somebody. People want to, you know, look online. They want to be able to chat and ask questions. They want to, you know, possibly message to get their answers versus picking up the phone and calling. And so, you know, you're looking at that huge digital transformation that they have, whether you be a small, medium, or inner-sized business. They're kind of wanting the same from you.
Yeah, you think that it's very it's important no matter what size your business.
That's true.
Right? Because you could be a one-man show, but have some really some sensitive information from your customers that you can't have, you know, stolen or exposed.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and, you know, digital transformation or, you know, your tech stack can help you make sure that you're safe and secure, as well as help you with branding, as well as help to ensure that you have good customer service. So all of those things combined.
So tech stack.
I'm telling you, today's world, you can go back and look at history a little bit. Look at Citibank, look at the Sony PlayStations, and, you know, look at the hack that occurred. Citibank's hack was a message board, and the truth of the matter was, it came in from the back end. It's really hard to get into a message board and be able to collect everybody's information and then be able to use it. So I really never did understand the cover up on that. Sony, however, came out and said, yeah, you know, everybody that had credit cards, all their personal information, well, out the door that went. And it took several years for them to create the integrity to even want to buy their system again. And then we had the old one that I really, I can't help but bothers me the most is the lady that got out of her car to go get coffee, and she left her laptop in there, and she left behind 6,000 plus veterans' names and addresses in a laptop. And if she had just stopped for a moment and said, what if, that may have changed the whole scenario, but that became somebody else's property, and it was unfortunate. So that's really the best thing about having somebody much like our girl here today who really can help you define what your security needs are and be able to put the network in place to actually save the most valuable asset you have, and that's customer information.
Yeah, it's definitely true because your customer information and the integrity of your company is so important in this day and age. You know, And when you think about it, just kind of what you were talking about with her, think about what could have been like, okay, let's say she did lose her laptop. Well, if she's in a cloud-based product set, or her laptop was actually more safe and secure, did it have a password? Did it have a username? Was it easy to, all these things are things that you should be thinking about as a business owner. If your password can be guessed by looking at your Facebook, then we've got something to do. Yeah. And, I'm a big pro of talking about the importance of having multi-factor authentication versus just your traditional username and password. Because, we're only human, and there's only so many different things that we can think of to change.
As annoying as that is having to put in the password. Oh, okay, now you're going to text me. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's okay. How many times I have to do this?
Exactly.
But it is secure, though. It's more secure than, so if I get a text and I'm not even on my computer, whoa, what's going on?
Exactly. And I think that's what you look at. Some of it may seem a little more, 1 or 2 minutes takes you a little more time, but that safety and security is well worth that 1 or 2 minutes of time to make sure that your clients' informations aren't getting out, because, there are fines for, credit cards getting out, HIPAA violations, the broad spectrum. And the thing is, if you're small, medium, enterprise, no matter what size you are, those are pretty hefty fines once they find out. And it can cost a lot. So...
Yeah, the old days. Way, way old days. Older than me, okay? There used to be a thing that, the Spaniards would travel and, they would be cautious about who's following them, who's watching them as they traveled. And they would typically dig a hole, and they would then bury all their gold in this hole, and then they cover that up. And they bury their nice plates and those kind of things made of silver. And then they would cover that all up, and then they would just go ahead and put personal objects in the hole that had little or no value at all and cover that up. So when we look at the multiple level of authentication, we look back at the days when the Spaniards used to hide their gold. And the way that this would really come about is you'd see that there was a hole, and you'd only dig so far, and you'd give up, and chances are you never really got to the gold. Mm-hmm. And that was a level of protection. And today, just as you mentioned, we are looking at different levels of being able to protect certain information. Mm-hmm. Now my question becomes, do we give information out to save the most important? Is that what we do today, or?
I wouldn't say you give information out. I think you put things in place so that your customers can interact with you how they want and get the information that they need, and they need only. And whether that's software-based or that's network-based or that's how you set up your systems within your business, that would be what I would look at that point. And I really think kind of what you're talking about, though, really talks about a zero trust network is what are you going to allow people to access?
Right.
So, and when you think about zero trust, it really is what it says. It says, all right, so, we all remember the Target hack that went through their HVAC system, right? But if you created a zero trust, they wouldn't have been allowed to access other systems by getting in.
The other thing that kind of gets me is I know today, I'm an old IT guy from way back. Today, there's multiple ways of saving information. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that you've hit on before that really is should spark a lot of people's interest is the idea that we don't keep everything underneath our desk or in a single server where we hold everything in the same place where we capture it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that has to do with the case of a fire.
Yes. And you want to think about it is if tomorrow something happened to your physical location, whether that be your home office or your office headquarters, brick and mortar, what would you do if you lost all your client information? And you want to think about how is that information being backed up? How am I making sure that information is safe and secure? I know that I've dealt with clients that have had tapes where they have, let's say their office manager take that tape home. Well, what happens if something happens between, the office and the house? How are you going to continue to be able to access that information, and what's going to happen to it?
Very good said. Yeah, the value of customer information is, it takes forever to collect it. And then to know what to do with it. And then you turn around one day and you come driving up into the office and it's on fire. Mm-hmm. How do you ever start a business over again? I mean, really, isn't that what we're doing if we lost all that information?
You really are. You're starting from, day one.
Yeah.
Because, excuse me, you're thinking about, I have this information, whether it be, okay, so I dispatch all these people here. But I mean, even to that, think about the information that you store that you need for your taxes, your compliancy, things like that. And I know you guys know as a nonprofit, y'all have to keep donation information for so many years. What happens if that's completely lost? Like, how are you going to rebuild that information? And then how are you going to justify it to, your tax person and say, hey, here's what we lost, here's what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Taxes scare me anyway, right? And now you're putting that in there and you're not safeguarding your information. Wow. Mm-hmm. That could be a huge effect.
It could be, definitely.
One of your employees opens up an email that they really don't know about, and then what's that called? A virus? What's that?
Virus,
ransom?
malware, ransomware.
Yeah, and that's happened. That happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And here locally, that's happened several times to some fairly large organizations. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to recover for that. Almost impossible. You never really fully recover.
No, and the importance is, let's say that you have some type of virus, malware, ransomware, whatever happened, you want to back up all your information from prior to being hit, mm-hmm. right? So it's important not only that you're backing up your information, that you're checking that your backups are going through. I had a client that had a situation like that and realized that they hadn't processed a full backup in 2 years.
Wow.
So, I mean, it can definitely, and you can't go back 2 years. You've got, those whole 2 years of information that you need for your business to move forward.
Oh my gosh! Just one project working mm-hmm. for like an hour or two, it's not getting saved, and then the computer crashes mm-hmm. or electricity goes out, and like you can lose 2 hours of work.
I mean, we know what that's like.
Several times.
Yeah,
losing 2 mm-hmm. years. Oh man, I've lost a hard drive before. Mm-hmm. I had all kinds of projects on there. I had like creative graphic stuff, and
we're still not over that.
We're still not over that. Lost a lot. No. Lost a lot. It hurt, and that's when I started depending more on the cloud. Mm-hmm. Because I was always like, I'm a hard guy. I needed a hard. I wanted in my hand.
You want to hug that.
Yes.
I want to hug my laptop. I want to hug my server. I want to hug my on-prem phone system. Whatever it is, mm-hmm. you want to kind of stick with what you're used to.
Yeah. So I would take out my hard drive every day, take it home to work on my laptop. So it was going through all this movement and getting banged in my bag, and eventually it quit on me. Mm-hmm. Lesson learned.
That's true. Yeah. Definitely. But I think one of the biggest things for businesses and business owners is to think about, some of the simple things that you can do to protect yourself. And one of the biggest things I see is you can train what's between the floor and the computer, and that's your employees. Because, you're just talking about opening up ransomware, opening up files. We're human. And so if we see something that we think in our mind, like, oh, this looks legit, you want to train your employees to do a little more than just a cursory look at it and be like, oh, this says it's from Microsoft. Hold on 1 second. That's not a Microsoft email. That means this bad boy goes in the delete file.
Mm-hmm. I just got several from Facebook mm-hmm. saying your account has been frozen, right? And it just looked weird. Then you look inside there and there's actually a Gmail in there. Mm-hmm. Like, delete.
Exactly. Well, and too, it'll be something like, a big company like Chase or something like that, not to call them out because they're not sending these out, but it'll be just a minute change. One of the letters will be wrong or something will be. And so, if you train yourself, your employees to start, critically looking at these things, that's the most important. And it can even come down to, let's say you get emails from someone all the time, y'all work with all the time, but this particular email says, hey, you need to open this to do this, this, and this, and that's not traditionally what you're receiving from them. Mm. Do your due diligence, pick up the phone, call and say, hey, I got an email from you. Did you send this?
Yeah.
So.
Before you open it.
Exactly.
That's pretty important right there, before you open it.
I was in Phoenix, Arizona. I was at a casino not because I wanted to gamble, but that's what it turned out to be anyway. But I got a newspaper shoved underneath my door, and I got to reading it. And the article on the front page was all about the oil companies in Midland, Texas, how fast they're growing, gallons and all that good stuff was all on there, the amount of money that's being pushed through Midland. And the next thing I realized is, today we have 11-year-olds or younger that can hack. Mm-hmm. And the thing about this was that really grasped me was I did a thing in my neighborhood at one time to see how many open networks we had. And honestly, most folks, believe it or not, if you know their phone number, and I'm saying this out loud, you can typically use part of the phone numbers to actually break the code and get into their network. So I'm thinking a lot of these folks are in the oil industry. Mm-hmm. And how easy it was for me to just find out that the network was open. They have, where you can stand outside, basically hide a computer, and the computer can go through a wide variety of sequences to break a code. And typically it averaged, different time frames as to what it takes to do that. Mm-hmm. But, they need a person like you to show them and really help them, guide them to where they can close off the front door to their network to the point where if it's open, you might as well just leave the house and go on vacation, right? And leave the key in the door, not under the mat, and just let people in. And really, we depend on people like yourself who can actually get out there and look at the network and see where the open spots are and really secure them. And really what this means too, folks, I hope you're listening, it's about your assets that you need to be covering. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take much for somebody to come out there and make sure you're safe, clear, and organized the way you need to be to have that kind of information at home.
Yes, that's definitely true, especially in today's environment where you've got so many people working from home. It used to be you'd be like, okay, our office is good. We've got our network set up. We've got our protections in place. But what happens once they leave the office?
Right.
Where are they? Where are they getting Wi-Fi? Are they using just their laptop or are they using their phone? There's multiple endpoints that people can get in with.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about covering it as a holistic view of what all everybody's using. And just like when you were saying about networks being open, it's not even that. Think about, let's say you're at the office, right? And really your executives have their Wi-Fi. Everybody has their Wi-Fis. Well, at the end of the day, a lot of times, I'm not going to say who, but they'll write on the whiteboard, here's all the password information for your Wi-Fi, blah, blah, blah. Well, Joe Schmo walks in and he's got that information now because he's got that password because you haven't created like a separate visitor network.
Guest
for
pads, yeah.
Exactly, for them to use. It's the same thing.
There are some cyber muggers out there.
Cyber muggers.
They follow you wherever they go, and they open up their laptop computer to increase the Wi-Fi. So when you get into coffee shops and those kind of things, you think you're on a secure Wi-Fi. Let's just say it, folks. Mm-hmm. Those Wi-Fis in airports, hotels, coffee places, none of those are secure. Mm-hmm. That's an open Wi-Fi. You can set your laptop to receive or output a higher broadcast. Mm-hmm. So when you do get into it, when you're logging in, let's say the coffee shop, you're actually logging into maybe a neighbor next to you who is cyber mugging you. Mm-hmm. And going from one place to the other with you. And typically all they want is your bank account information. Mm-hmm. So this is happening in an airport in front of me. In fact, my wife was with me. I got up and I saw what was going on between two people sitting at the counter. And I believe this was in Dallas. Mm-hmm. And the girl was on there. She was doing her bank account. And the next thing you know, I can see what she's doing on her laptop is now happening on his laptop. All you could do is pull the plug on her and shut her computer off. She got really mad at me, and the guy took off, and the police all came, and I was trying to tell the police what the guy looked like. They looked at security, but they were actually looking at taking me. because I tried to save her from somebody getting all her account information. Does this happen quite often now, or is this kind of getting to the point where it's maybe not as bad as it used to be?
Oh no, I mean I think it's still happening.
Yeah.
You know, constantly, consistently. And actually, you know, I have this plug right here, but this is what I always tell people, you know, take these with you and plug your phone in versus when you go into like an airport or somewhere and they've got the little, you know, USB
Charging stations.
Exactly. Because how do you know that that charging station is legit? How do you know they're not trying to get into your
Wait,
information?
what?
Yeah. See?
What?
That's why we
my
need her.
gosh. Yeah. I've been plugging my phone into everything, man.
I mean, I don't think it's as prevalent as people just using the open Wi-Fi technique because it works, right?
Right.
But the thing is, you know, how can you secure yourself is the most important thing.
And should you not be asking yourself that question every time you plug in, every time you turn on your phone? Are you secure? I mean, don't get me wrong. I know some folks that are older than me who are really, I don't know how else to say it, but they're just scared to death of being on the internet. You know, they call them cyberphobias, but they don't like working with it because they think everybody, for one, the government is watching me. Two is everybody is going to get my information. I don't trust anything that comes off the internet. It just goes on. But, you know, we've got some older folks that we know that I don't know how to tell them it's okay and when it's okay.
They already have all your information.
Yeah, I mean, should I tell them that?
They already know you better than you know yourself.
Yeah. But, you know, what do you do in cases like that? How do you inform people that, you know, here's the steps you should take maybe to help with your personal security? You know, I'm not going to say who, but I know somebody that gets on the World Wide Web or World Wide Wait, and they order everything they think of off of this. And I just can't help but think, you know, you're using your credit card, personal information. How do you begin to stop some of this?
I mean, I think you have to really look at what you're doing, you know, and I think that, you know, having, I hate to say a base level of knowledge, but, you know, you want to look at websites, you know, do they have the proper security measures? Does it say we're secure? What does it say when you're ordering things? Yeah, it's a similar, I know we all order from Amazon and we all, you know, do all that. But then let's say you're ordering from some small company, you know, what do they have in place? You know, I mean, and let's not forget Amazon and everybody else is just as vulnerable in the long run. You know, the question is not if you're going to get hit. The question is when you're going to get hit.
There you go.
And, you know, when you get hit, what is your remediation plan? Like, what does it look like when something is, you know, lost or information gets out? What do you do?
So I love that. So could you like run through us like a quick scenario or remediation plan?
So really what you're looking at, you know, as a business owner is, okay, let's say something gets lost or gets destroyed or gets hacked, whatever it may be, is how do you rebuild that information in a safe and secure environment? How do you guarantee it's now safe and secure? And how do you move forward? You know, it's a part of, I think, the remediation plan is not just about what are you going to do when you get hit. It's, are we looking on a quarterly or at least a yearly basis to see, you know, where are our open spots within our network? How can we, you know, be hit? Whether that looks at, you know, you're looking at vulnerability scans, penetration testing, things like that, because that gives you an idea about, okay, here's the things we need to work on. So you don't want to per se, you know, dig your head into the sand like an ostrich and be like, I'm going to pretend like we're never going to be hit. It's, let's go ahead and find out what, you know, holes we have, where we need to train, and whether that be employees, you know, secure our email more, you know, things of that nature.
You know, I want to just ask what your feelings are about how often should you maybe change your passcode? What are some of the things can you put into your passcode that maybe increases security? I know a lot of people, in fact, I got to tell a story real quick. I was at Mayo Hospital and we were going through an audit, and I was waiting for a buddy of mine to get let go and let's go lunch. And as I was standing in there, the auditor came in and he says, go ahead and log in for me. And he logs in, and I'm telling you, it was a long password. And I'm thinking, man, was that not cool that he can remember that password? And it had to be somewhat like 20 some odd characters, if not more. I just remember that him having to move around the keyboard to type in such a password. And then the guy asked him to log out and log back in. And again, he puts in this real long password. And I can't believe it. And then the third time he asked him to do it, I really took note as to what he was doing. He actually would type it all in, and he sat back, he looked up, kind of stretched around, and then he typed a little bit more. Well, when he did that, I so happened to look up, and there was the password across the ceiling. And the auditor caught him, and I hate to say it, but he did get fired over that. But my gosh, he had it wide open on the ceiling, for heaven's sakes. And I see a lot of people doing this where I'm sure you can tell us. I mean, passwords are really simple. They're not, they're silly as far as some of the passwords. It's not hard to figure them out. Some people, will put a password underneath their table or something, and really not hide it. It's, if you were to be a hacker or something, that would probably be the first place you'd think to look.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you talk about that because I had a client call me and he was like, all right, Kat. He's like, I walked in the other day to my business and he's like, remember how you said sticky notes with passwords were like bad? And I was like, yes. And he's like, and particularly where they get supplies, they had a sticky note with a password to one of their systems in there. And I was like, that's what I was talking about. That's a no-go.
Yeah.
I mean, with your password, like I said, if they can pull the information on Facebook, then, you have a problem. So you want to make your password, a mix of letters, numbers, switch out like a O for a 0 or however you want to do. And you want to change it relatively often. I would say every 2 to 3 months, on
Good.
that one. But the best thing is to have, multi-factor authentication, put that in place. And as far as passwords, it's important. Make sure you have a password on your laptop. Make sure you have a password on your mobile phone, especially if you have applications and things that you use for business on there. Because, if you don't have that, we've all done it. We've left our phone somewhere and not realized we left it. That's right there for them to get into.
Speaking of that, is biometrics starting to take place today where it's getting to be more prominent, where we use that? I just noticed we bought a laptop at the house and it's got a thumbprint, which makes it really awful because I can't get into it if it's my wife's, and use it. So I have to wait till she comes home or something to get her fingerprint so it's okay for me to use the laptop. Is that something that's really starting to take place more and more prominent, that y'all start to see this?
I think we see it more on equipment and devices, but I'm real old school because especially the ones that use your face, how hard is it for somebody to grab it and put it in your face and then have access to your information?
Yeah.
You might as well make sure you have a good password on there or, to unlock it with letters, numbers, and all that good stuff.
My daughter did that to me the other day. Yeah, so I asked her, she was telling me something about the phone. I was like, what do you mean? And so I started to put the passcode in. She was like, she just angled it towards my face from a long way away. And she just started on it. I was like, really? That easy? It's like sometimes I have trouble lining it up to my face.
Yeah, she was cyber mugging you.
Yeah, she got me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think she can get in there anyway because sometimes I go in and on my photos, there's all kinds of selfies from her sticking her tongue out at me.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Kat, is there some viruses now that are coming out that are new and maybe people don't know about them that seem to be doing a lot of networking damages, maybe adding a worm here and there?
I think they're always coming out with something new. Right? If you, read online or you look at anything that's sent out, Verizon has a really good information that they sent out. Avant has another one that they sent out. And the thing is, if you look through them, it's going to tell you, here's what's going on,
Right.
And the best way that I can say all the time to protect yourself is to put something in place where you're checking on your network, you're checking on your information, make sure that you have a plan in place. Like, okay, if this happens, here's what I need to do. Because the further conversation goes to, and I know they're kind of in talks about this and it and to my understanding, been fully is, let's say, so you pay to get your information back. There are some people you can't pay to get your information back because they're funding terrorism. And so now you've technically funded something of that nature. So.
Wow. Crazy world.
Yeah, that's
It
a
is.
donation you don't want to make, right?
Yeah.
Well, and what can be even scarier is, a lot of the time is you're not aware that someone's in your network. The FBI is calling you before you know, like, okay, we've been hit.
And by that time, there's already been a lot of damage done.
That's true. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll get into your network and they'll just hang out. They're just waiting for the right opportunity to do something. So, let's say you're going through and you're blah, 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 blah. We get up to Christmas and all of a sudden you have this huge month. That's what they're waiting for. But they're already in your network and they've been there for like 6 or 7 months. So it's not that they just strode in.
Because that's when you're most susceptible, right? You're likely to make purchasing decisions that you wouldn't normally make because, hey, it's Christmas.
Well, not only that, if your business, let's say, increases revenue in that month, you're more likely where they're like, all right, now we're going to lock it up and we're going to say, give us this money because we know you've had this money,
Right.
So they're like, now you're prime. And once you've been hit, you're primed to get hit again. It's not like one and done, like, okay, they're done. No, they're like, they had vulnerabilities. They may patch these, but let's find what else is in there.
That's typically found, I would think, by audits, right? You can get into your client's computers and give them an audit as far as I don't know, to find out whether or not there's something intrusive going on.
Well, there's different levels too. I work with companies that have everything from where, like, let's say they're going in and they say, all right, we're going to audit your company. And it's kind of a more, I'll say, price economical way where you give them your passwords, you give them the information, but they look around and they say, all right, here's where your holes are. We have everything from that to like full on, we're just going to try to get into your system and see what we can find out.
And Kat, isn't there a difference between, and I'm just throwing this on the table, a white hat, gray hat, and a black hat?
Yes, there's definitely going to be a difference between each of those. And that's kind of what you talk about, the white hat being more like, okay, I'm giving them permission to get in and find out where my holes are, all the way up to, okay, they're just trying to get in there and find out whatever they can. So, it's just like you have, what they call the ethical hackers, which would be the people that you would employ to try to see, how can we get into the system versus, obviously the hackers that are out to get you.
So that really brings another question of mine. How open are we, do you think, in the Permian Basin as far as some of these companies dealing with big accounts?
I think there's always a danger, especially when you look at companies. So, you may have a smaller, medium-sized business that does companies with larger companies like your Halliburton, your Schlumberger's, and your this, and they have contracts.
Yeah.
And we've seen it before where, the small company gets hit and that's why they're hit. Not to say that when you contract with these companies, they don't say, hey, you have to have everything in place.
Right.
But it's still up to you to maintain having all that in place.
Wow. And, I noticed, too, that even back in my day, we had policies and procedures how to handle certain viruses or certain emails and the procedure of reporting that through the chain of command to make sure that we can get somebody on it so it doesn't affect the entire organization, hopefully. Do you do a lot of that nowadays where you write policies and procedures for companies?
We do a lot these days where we're helping companies to create their policies and procedures and make sure that, they're educating their employees, making sure that, the employees know what to do, what not to do. And one of the biggest things is when you're writing a policy is once an employee experiences or sees something that they know what to do, who do I go to, who do I contact, how do we stop this right now?
Right. So it's like everybody's in on it when something happens.
Exactly.
I found too at Mayo when I was there in the IT area that there was a lot of communication from the cybersecurity folks and the infrastructure and architecture kind of folks for security. There were different departments, but yet they all worked together. But they would inform everybody as to be careful of this, be careful of that. Something new is starting to happen within the marketplace. Be aware of maybe this type of email. Really, really good about informing us. But a lot of companies just don't do that. I've gone on and they've gone my way of my career, and I have found that there's sometimes no communication. It stays within their IT department, and nobody knows what to look for. So when it happens, it happens.
Exactly. Well, and I think it goes back to the most, as a business owner, whether you're small, medium, or enterprise, the most important asset you have to protect your company is what's between the floor and the computer, and that's your employees. So the more knowledge that you give them, they're going to be able to utilize that to protect the company.
More eyes on what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, because, we've all heard the stories of, like the VP accidentally opens this email and tries to start a transfer to a company that they've worked with a ton of times that they find out is not legit and is a whole new, banking information and all that, and get stopped. But, we've also heard about secretaries. We've heard about office managers. We've heard about, I hate to say, John Smith in the accounting department got an email, or HR, payroll, the whole mix of things.
There's vulnerability points everywhere, and humans are the ones who are interacting with those vulnerability points.
Exactly.
So that's the weak, right? Because you can put all the digital, what do you call them, walls or blocks? Or
You can put everything in place, but if you don't train yourself and your employees, you still have that weak link, so to speak. Right. I mean, and who doesn't love like a free T-shirt? And we've seen those kinds of things. Or who gets concerned? Let's say you're not that knowledgeable, and you get an email, kind of what I was talking about, where it looks like it's from Microsoft, and y'all use Microsoft for your email, and then they're like, "Oh, we've got to do this, this, and this. You're almost out of storage." And so they go ahead and they write, or they click on it, but it's not from them. Everything else looks exactly like it, except for the email.
Right, right, and it could be subtle differences.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing too. Is I was told one of the biggest things you can watch for a hacker when they want to push you onto a landing page is check the spelling. 11-year-olds don't spell very good.
No, I mean, and that's the thing. It's those little bitty changes that, us as humans just want to autocorrect, when we look at it.
That's a good point.
Instead of it,
gloss over it.
Yeah, instead of it being Bank of America, or instead of Netflix, whomever it can be, this huge company, it'll be misspelled. And so you'll go in there, things like that.
Yeah. I got to ask, Kat, is there a difference in different types of networks that are safer than others? Like, for instance, maybe a bus network versus a star network, or any of those kind of networks that you would say that as a small business, this is what I would look at first?
What I would really always say to a small business is, number one, look at how you're interacting with your clientele.
Okay.
And then when at all possible, put a zero trust network in place. Put a zero trust philosophy in place. And the reason I say that is, you don't want your HVAC company to be able to access your records, and it can be anything from like, okay, these employees need to access this, make sure that's all they can access. Because you're leaving yourself vulnerable. So
only give to those the permissions to the information that they only need without granting them the ability to look at everything in the company.
Exactly.
So I think that's really smart. I think you're really putting up some good roadblocks.
Exactly, because you want to think of it like they're entering a hotel, right?
Right.
And let's say it's a high-end hotel. So, everybody can enter necessarily through the door, but before they can get upstairs, they have to have a key card. And then obviously before they can get into the room, that key card has to give them access. So
say you have a startup, and they, startups don't have a lot of money getting going, but they have a lot of data, customer information. They need to protect it, and for them to put, I'm just thinking of the business owner right now who is listening to this, and it says, oh wow, I'm completely open and vulnerable. All I have is, a couple computers and, Wi-Fi, my internet going on. What can I do today? And is it gonna cost an arm and a leg to secure my system? Like, are there ways for a startup to protect, even at a minimal level?
Oh, absolutely. So, I talked about multi-factor authentication. The next thing, and I will tell you this, I think this is from a branding perspective and from a startup perspective. If your email is, I don't know, just because there's a horse picture, turquoisehorse@gmail.com, that's problem number one. You need to have an email, a professional grade email. You need to have professional grade email, services behind it so that you're protected. Because train your employees, but the thing is, you can do things to put in place so that the employees, not that they're not having to look, but they're already somewhat protected.
Right.
Something that, when they get these emails, it automatically goes into a folder and says, these ones we're really concerned about before they're there.
That's a great point. The email, right? Because we tell our customers all the time, get a business address.
Yes.
Get your at soandso.com.
Exactly. And like I said, behind that, get an email service. There's there's Coro, there's all these other different companies that they're not very expensive per email address just to protect your email. To go ahead and protect that and work efficiently, get things done. Definitely.
Right, because getting your email, that system already has some security in place.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and, on top of that, you talked about, okay, so I'm in this office and, we've got Wi-Fi. Make sure you have a closed network, that you're not giving out your password. You're not giving out your information to everybody who comes in to work on it, that you have, created a guest network, get a professional grade, wireless access point in place, do your due diligence, get a firewall, whether it be on-prem or whether it be, in the cloud. Make sure that you have all those things in place.
So just to clarify, on-prem means on premises.
Yes.
Like it's hard. Can you
That
explain the
means
difference
it's
there?
a hardware device that's there. And, and that leads to a bigger conversation because, it's great to have these things in place, but make sure that you're checking to make sure the patches are going through because that's the only way that they're truly protecting you.
So
That's been a huge problem when I was at Mayo Hospital, is the patches were never updated. One of the auditors came in and caught that. There are some heads that rolled over that because when you're, the old saying is when you have a software that, I'm not going to mention any software names, but if you have a software and you're not updating the software and you have a threat that comes out, and typically you want to make sure that patch is there before that virus gets involved with all the computers. It'll always happen if you're not making sure that you're updating your system. So a lot of people, there was a lot of trouble that went on with that.
Well, I can even think to a couple of years ago, and I think this was prior to 2020, Apple notified HP like, hey, your wireless printers have a hole in them where people can access people's network. And so the next thing you know, you're having to update the software for your printers because, how many, we don't necessarily directly plug into the printers anymore. We do Wi-Fi to get into them. And it changed the way that you had to do that. And so for a couple of my clients, they were super upset and frustrated. And I was like, yes, but you'd rather be protected than not protected.
There you go.
Yeah, sure.
It's the same thing for your phones. I cannot say enough. When an update comes out, make sure you're updating your phones, you're updating your computers. Those are simple ways to help protect yourself.
So for the technology literate like myself, a patch would be like an update.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, they're saying so let's say you have, a hardware firewall in place and it's not managed, nobody's taking care of it for you. Well, if you get that in August, I can guarantee you in 6 months there's patches that need to have been done.
Kind of like when you get the new computer, you can't even use it till the next day because of all the updates.
Exactly. Okay. And those are just additional things to protect yourself. I hate to say there's never this one and done, but there are things you can do to make sure that you're protecting yourself, your company, and your clients.
And hackers are always advancing every day. And that comes, too, to the point where computers are always updating. Every 12 to 14 months, they're getting faster. New technologies coming out to accommodate the speed. And those two enable, I imagine, some holes in the system. I just think, gosh dang, there's a lot to keep up with.
Well, there is, and I think sometimes there can be a misconception where they're like, okay, so I have an on-prem phone system, so I'm less likely to get hacked than if I have a hosted phone system. And I'm like, or the same thing with servers, like, oh, I've got this on site, I'm holding it, versus being in the cloud, and there's no truth to that. There's vulnerability everywhere around. So
because it's on site, it's still
connected to a network somewhere.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the keys to the front door, right? Is the network.
And so either way, you're going to have to always update. But if you're on the cloud, that's a service that the company that you're on the cloud with, that they're automatically updating. Right?
Well, you're trusting them to do it.
Or you're trusting in them. I always say trust but verify.
That's a good one.
That's a great
Trust
Russian
but
proverb
verify.
for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, and that goes to your backups, trust but verify. Like, make sure that if you're backing up to the cloud, that it is backing up all the information. It's backing up everything that you need. Because the last thing you want to have is, either a disaster happen or you get hacked or something happen. And lo and behold, that's not really updating everything.
You're just getting fragments. Or, all those, what do they call them? The wingdings and the, just little symbols.
Yeah.
Instead of your actual, what you had in there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's worst. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's a lot of information. Yeah. I mean, I think, small business owners, if you're gotta be aware of the threats out there.
Exactly. I think that's the most important thing is just, you cannot think as a business owner, oh, well, I'm just this tiny little operation. Nobody's going to want to go after me. Well, you know what? Your tiny little operation, they're still interested in what they're, like I said, they may go in there and hang out for a while and wait for like a really good month. And they're like, all right, here we go. We got them.
Yeah, I like the thought process on that. I'm small. No one's going to touch me. That's exactly the reason why they would. You're the kind of person that doesn't have the necessary roadblocks, if you will, to stop the intrusion.
That's true.
And then here we are. I'm easy, and I got you. There's a chiropractor here in town, and I hope he's listening. It wasn't too long ago that I was in this parking lot, and I realized his network was wide open. And I thought, wow, there you go. A lot of customers, if you will, who are carrying insurance possibly and all those other good things. Why couldn't I capture that? It's open. So, let me ask too, do you come across just about every customer or quite a bit of customers who have an open network that they just don't realize it?
I think I come across quite a bit of customers who not necessarily have a full open network, but I don't think they realize all the different spaces that are open.
Right.
Like they're thinking about, let's say they're brick and mortar or their headquarters, but then they're not necessarily thinking about, oh, well, when he's working from home or, oh, his phone or, you've got mobile device management. There's just so many different aspects to it. It's not just like, I hate to say back in the day. It's not like back in the day when you just went to the office and you worked from the office,
Right. And that's exactly what we're doing more and more today. A lot of people, since the pandemic, we've learned that we can work from home.
Exactly.
And then, you got to do the same thing at home that you'd have to do at the corporate office. That's, shut all the doors to not allow people in.
And that leads to the question is when people leave, what all are they accessing?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah.
What programs are they accessing? How are they accessing these programs,
Right.
And leads to their home network. What is their home network set up like? Can I drive by and guess their password, so they're not safe and secure? Or, they're just completely open,
And that's getting to be easier. That's happening too a lot.
Well, and you think about it, somebody who's working from home is more likely to go to Best Buy and just grab one of their, Netgear wireless access points or something of that nature that is not necessarily as safe and secure. Not that they're not secure in any way, shape, or form.
But they're not the answer to everything.
Exactly.
And that's what people need to understand. I think we're in the same shape. We think that we've got one good thing, and that one good thing is going to protect us from A to Z. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, I see these companies who have massive amount of customer information. Mm-hmm. And you would think that's what drives your company. Why would you allow that to be open for anyone?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it goes back to, the one-man shop per se, whether that be, obviously if you're a chiropractor or you're a doctor or you deal with something like that, you're going to have, HIPAA's going to come into place. You're going to have compliancy issues that are going to come into place, all of that. And though you don't want to be hit with a violation of that nature. I mean, nobody wants to be hit with anything, but,
right.
For your small, medium-sized business, you can get hit with a violation and get fined, and that can be like game over.
Yeah.
Or, it goes down to, let's say they lock up your system and they say, hey, we want, such and such amount of money. The question is, can you pay that? And what is the repercussions of paying that?
Yeah, it's not like you can just plug in a new network and get your information back. It doesn't happen that way, folks.
Well, and also, you're trusting in somebody else that they're going to give your information back once you pay. And that's not a guarantee.
Nope, that sure isn't.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you never see them. You don't know who they are.
Exactly.
Right?
You never see them. You don't know who they are. If they're any good, it's going to be hard to figure them out, so to speak.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So what do you do in that situation? Mm-hmm. I mean, you kind of, you kind of have to pay it, just hoping, right?
There's companies out there that have, right, Kat,
yes,
that they pay it. Do they get their information back? Is that 100% sometimes, or?
It's not 100% that you've gotten your information back. Luckily, most of the companies that I've dealt with have gotten their information back, and that's them following the proper procedure, letting people know what happened and being very open and honest about it.
I mean, still, you get your information back, everything's cool, but who's to say they didn't duplicate it and still have it?
Exactly. Who's to say, where is that information going? And and the repercussions can be, okay, so, 100 of my clients' information got out. Now I have to pay for, fraud protect for them for the next 3 years. Well, it's a bigger conversation than, okay, just this. It's how does it affect my business? A lot of times people will look at it and be like, oh, the expense of certain things of putting in place, may feel overwhelming to them. But the question is, what happens if you don't have this? What is the cost of that?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So again, that goes back to the idea. Please correct me if I'm wrong, for sure. What are you willing to give up? Mm-hmm. I'm kind of going back to the old days of the Spaniards digging a hole and kind of burying things, but in the old days, it used to be you think you got what you came after, and those are the things that mean the least amount to us. Mm-hmm. But again, that's, you got water faucets everywhere.
Exactly.
And you got to be able to turn them off.
Yeah, you want to be able to protect yourself, protect your clients. Obviously that's extremely important. But you want to put something in place. Something is better than nothing.
Right.
That's what I always tell people when you're starting out. Number one, get a business grade email service. Make sure that, you have a professional email, something that can't just be duplicated. Because what's to stop somebody if you're, turquoisehorse@gmail.com from them getting into your system and then going, oh, hey, we're turquoisehorse1@gmail.com.
Or spell turquoise with just a transverse left
Exactly.
letter, and you'll never tell the difference.
Exactly.
Well, isn't that the truth?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to name names, but I know a company here that still works off of an AOL address.
Yeah, no, there's several.
Yeah, we've got small companies that we've dealt with that actually helping them. That's the first thing I noticed. My God, AOL, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's still around. That's what we say. They're still around. They're still operating. I think I saw a net zero not too long ago.
I know. And I have one of the law firms, one of their gentlemen was still like holding on to his southwesternbell.net.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, dude, this is going away. So you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do. You
Yeah.
know, obviously, my recommendation is let's just not have random emails out there.
Right.
Let's stick with, such and such lawfirm.com, you know. I mean, and that's the thing is, it's not just about protecting yourself. It's about branding your company. It's about, being known, things, and that. So, make sure you have a website, make sure you have an email. If you're taking payments on your website, make sure that everything's legit. You've put security in place. If, make sure you have DDoS protection if that's going to be something that's extremely important to you. And if you go down, you're going to lose money.
Could you say that again? Some what protection?
DDoS.
DDoS. Could you explain a little bit what that is?
Basically, it's when someone goes in to overwhelm your network. So you'll get hit constantly and consistently. And they'll overwhelm your network where you can't take orders or you can't do anything. Oh. And until you fix that problem, there's nothing you can do.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So the request comes in and the computer can't handle all the requests. So
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever seen Lucille Ball in the candy factory,
yeah,
right?
The candy factory.
And she's trying to get the candy down her mouth and hide and all that, and it keeps speeding up. Oh, it's exactly what I think the system does.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's what you want to think about. It's like all of a sudden you've gone from 0 to 10,000 getting hit, and it just cannot handle it.
Yeah.
And I mean, not that long ago, there was a makeup launch and they got hit with a DDoS attack the exact same time of their launch. And so nobody could order.
Wow.
So, not only are they having this DDoS attack, but now they've got customers that are super upset because they were looking forward to this. And that's, it's bad for your reputation.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the what. And so, I mean,
It's drop of business.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how you get that business back.
That'd be tough. But I love how you are integrating the security with the branding of a business and the brand awareness, right? It really is a kind of a uniform kind of a front, right?
Yes.
Because you're protecting yourself, but you're also establishing your brand identity and building brand equity and trust from your customers. So it kind of like all works together really well if you think about it. The entrepreneurs out there, have that whole 360 perspective.
Well, and think about how do your clients want to interact with you? I mean, I'm not going to get into specific age sets, but, some clients like to talk over the phone. Some clients prefer email. Some clients prefer text messaging. And what you want to make sure is, or messaging, however you want, that, you're protected all around that circle. Yeah. And so if you're messaging back and forth with your client, are you doing that with a compliant messaging service? Are you keeping everything safe and secure on both sides of that? And the same thing with email, are your clients sending you credit card numbers through the email?
Oh.
No.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like you want to make sure and I think of it this way. So, I work with a particular plumbing company for my house. I have no complaints about how fast they get out, but I have to call them over the phone to pay because they can't just invoice me through my email. So if they added that ability to invoice through my email, that expands obviously my customer satisfaction because then I can just go in and pay it one and done.
Right.
And you feel more secure doing it. Yeah, I get that. Maybe that's something too that a lot of people don't know is that in doing it this way, you're creating a bigger issue than making it, let's say, convenient. I usually know that convenience carries a price tag one way or another.
That's true. But I think, too, with convenience is, how effective you can be with the systems that you put in place.
Amen.
Because, yes, you want to be convenient for your clients, but you also want to make sure, like, okay, if my client is messaging me on this, platform service, however, making sure that you're getting back with them within a time frame. Or, I like it simple, like, I know you guys have a Facebook page. I have a Facebook page. When someone reaches out, do you have an auto reply that says, hey, we're so glad you reached out to me? We normally answer, our messages within 24 to 48 hours. if you need immediate assistance, feel free to do this. You know, little things, little tweaks like that help your customer service.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, and it's the same thing, you know, if you're, I'm thinking of plumbing, obviously, but if you're having a plumbing issue and you can't get a hold of anybody and you can't, you know, that's extremely frustrating.
Right. Right. Or, somebody will be there in the next 2 hours. And 10 hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, I mean, you know, it's all making sure you have the systems in place, work with your technology, and make sure that you're helping to, you know, build that customer service, build that, you know, good feelings between you and your clients, and meeting them where they're at.
Because it's about the experience, right?
Exactly. It's about
It's
the
customer
experience. Customer experience is so important in this day and age. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and we all know that people have no problem going on Facebook talking about how they went to a particular Mexican restaurant and had like 2 little strips of heated meat in there. And I mean, we've all seen the pictures.
Was that one of mine? But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of great information. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Useful.
you know, and it's the lifeline of your business. That's why I think it's so important for what she does and how many people that she's helped. If you're looking to stay in business, you might as well create the foundation to enable that. And man, that's why we have people like Kat who can enable that for sure. And you can walk away from your work, your job, or whatever it may be, at home, especially nowadays, and know that your house is safe. You know, my pocketbook is safe. And if you don't have that feeling inside you, well, then you better be calling Kat today. Because really, that's what you got to have. And some people just don't think the importance of it, because I think the best point you brought up today, for me anyway, is it's not about if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. And if you can divert some of those issues by putting in the safeguards that you mentioned earlier today, you're better off for it.
Exactly. And you know, I think that when I talk about the tech stack, you know, it's everything that you do, from, you know, your phone systems, your internet, the mobile devices that you have. You know, if you're a trucking company, if you know, have electronic logs, or, you know, all these things. And, you know, I always tell people that there's always ways to tweak things, you know, and we can't guarantee always that we can make something less expensive, but we can preemptively protect you. You know, and I always use mobile device management because it's one of the easiest things to think about. You know, if you don't want your employees going way over their data or doing something crazy, you know, put in blocks so they can't look at YouTube, they can't look at Netflix, they can't look at, you know, Spotify, things of that nature. I mean, and it also prevents, you can put like, I don't want any of these websites to be looked at as well. You know,
Right.
because think about it, when your employee leaves the office,
Oh,
who all is actually on that laptop?
Yeah.
You know, I think we saw that a lot during 2020, where, you know, everybody's home, so kids are on the laptop, and over here is on the laptop, you know.
Because they had to do their homework.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had to work. I mean, I think technology has made life in a lot of ways so much easier. And, you know, it's great that we can work from home or we can work from anywhere. But you also want to make sure wherever you're at that you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your company,
Right.
you're protecting your clients.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. That's well said. I was going to ask if you had anything to say, but I think you just said it right there beautifully.
Yeah.
For sure.
well, Kat, let's tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you. Phone number, email. How do you want to be contacted?
So you can always get a hold of me over the phone, which is 432-288-0883. Or feel free to email me, and that's Kat, like my name, K-A-T, at shelbyts.com.
One more time for the email.
Kat, K-A-T, at shelbyts.com.
Fantastic. And for someone out there like just wondering, you could do like a analysis on their system and how it stands, how vulnerable they are right now in the moment,
Exactly.
and then from there they can make a decision if they feel
That's a
they're
great
big
point,
enough.
Angel.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one of the big things that Shelby Tech strives to do for our clientele is we're here to help you today, tomorrow, and the next day. You know, let's talk about what your digital transformation looks like and exactly how comfortable you are going forward.
So that's what we all should be doing, is having her come out and at least do an evaluation and then give them a level of safety, if you will. And you can discuss price and the equipment and all the other good things, but at least know where you stand.
Right. That's
Exactly.
first step one, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. Step one, let us come in, let us evaluate your tech stack that you have right now, and and look at places we may help you save, as well as I hate to say reallocating, but places that we can help you protect your business and yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's,
Yeah.
it's all for the business and their customers' best interest.
Exactly.
Well, awesome. This was a great podcast. I learned a lot.
Yeah, you were in class today,
Yeah,
weren't you?
absolutely.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
we love you to death, Kat, and
Sure.
we do. We appreciate so much that you do for the community, to these businesses. Let's not just forget too. Her knowledge of being an expert is somebody you need attached to your company.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.